All right, now we should be good to go. Can you guys hear me now? Awesome. I apologize about that. Even when you try to do all the system checks and everything with some new platform, I guess there's little quirks to figure out. But now I know just start with a fresh browser every single time and I should be good to go. All right. So what I was saying before you guys told me that you weren't hearing anything was this is going to be more of a Q&A setup. So if you've got any questions, feel free to use them in the chat box. I do have a double monitor set up, so it'll be easy for me to kind of jump in and take a look at all the questions. I did receive some questions from you guys already, so I will be going over those as well. So if you submitted them via the Command Center application, I've got those. And the PPC template that I shared last week, there was a few things that I didn't get to touch in depth just because we were kind of running through it. So we'll get to go a little bit deeper in depth with that if you want to just see exactly what the files were that I edited, so you can kind of start digging around in the code if that's your thing. With Firebug and that kind of thing, you can kind of start making changes to it, kind of making it your own, since we do all have access to the same template. But like I said, this is a template that I use myself, and I think going through the code, if you understand it, will give you some insight as to how you're able to edit some of the other themes and templates as well to kind of make them your own. So I'm going to start sharing my screen here. You guys let me know if you are if you can actually see it or not. All right, can you guys see my screen here? I'm logged into my command center here. Okay, perfect. Another question I had for you guys was, I've made the chat public. Whenever you guys type in something, are you able to see something that everybody else types in, or are you only able to see what you type in? Like I said, this is a new webinar platform for me, so I just was wondering how the chat here works, because I can see all of you guys chatting. Okay, interesting. I wonder how I can change that. It says that you guys are only able to see each other's or what you type, and if I type something from you, but so I guess it's different for everything. You guys may have to choose whether you want to make it public or private for yourselves. I'm not sure how that will work, because I purposely made it public, but I'm not sure how it will work for everybody else. All right, so Mark, I see that you're on here. You sent some questions regarding the template. The first one was talking about the solo plugin. The reason that's there, the solo plugin was basically an add-on that I created for SERPShaker Pro in order for you to be able to deactivate SERPShaker and activate solo. But when you first launch the site, you're going to launch it and you're going to have SERPShaker activated, because otherwise, we won't see any of the SERPShaker settings here on the left-hand side in order to create the posts, the pages, all that kind of stuff. So the purpose of the solo plugin is, so once you're done with the site, once you've built out all the pages, all the posts, you've done all that, you're good to go. Then you deactivate SERPShaker Pro. You can actually delete it if you want. And then you activate solo, which allows the video, the map, that kind of stuff to keep on working. So that's what solo was for. I know you asked about solo, why it's there. And if you do try to activate it while SERPShaker is active at the same time, then you're going to get errors like you saw, because basically SERPShaker already has those functions built in. Some of the code, it's going to be duplicated. So when you try to activate it, it's just going to kind of create a conflict there. So just make sure, if you want to use solo, deactivate SERPShaker, delete it if you want. I just keep it on there. It's not going to show up anywhere in the source code, anything like that. And it's actually not fully necessary, because even with SERPShaker itself, there's no leaks anywhere in the source code or anything like that. But if you wanted to, the option's there to just use the solo plugin. Another question you had was about the maps, custom options plus. So the main thing to remember as we were doing the training last time is this link here actually takes you to the wrong API that you have to enable. So I'm just going to open it up on a new tab here. But when you go here and you get inside the console, I think if you click on get a key, it's going to go ahead and take you over to the console area, the developer's console. I'll wait a second for Google to kind of load its thing. But you need to make sure in order to get the key to work, you got to have the static maps API. It's what it's called. So you got to enable that API. And sometimes this website works flawlessly for me. Other times it gives me issues. So it may just be something that I would have to do on Google Chrome. I'm on Firefox right now. So if you get it just loading forever, that could be the case. It may have to go on Chrome. But like I said, this is something, this static map one right here, or this one that's actually getting you the JavaScript, you also have to enable the static maps API. And you can use the same API key. It's just that you have to enable that specific API, static maps. If you don't see a map on there, that could be the issue. The other thing that could cause an issue is if there's spaces. When you copy and paste it from Google, they like to add a space in the front and a space in the back. So just make sure you delete those. If you continue having issues with it, then just send me the site via the command center chat. And anytime you guys just want to kind of put it out there, anytime that you guys are having issues with a particular site, if you want to, get some help, send me the site info and send me the WP admin username and password. Because what you'll notice most of the time is if you tell me you're having an issue, I'm going to ask you what the site is and what the login info is. So if you just want to send that from the get-go, then I can just jump right into it and kind of quickly figure out what's going on. So we talked about all these custom options, how they work and everything. Now, let's go a little bit in depth of how I kind of was able to take advantage of this particular plugin, custom options, and modify some of the things on our template here. So if we take a look at one of my posts, we can see here, it's not your typical WordPress setup because every single post looks almost like a landing page. And so the way that I was able to do this and take advantage of this theme was I basically kind of hacked the way that the loop works. And with Genesis, it's actually hidden in there pretty deep. I had to do a lot of tweaking to finally figure out how to get in there. So let me open up one of my apps here where we can see the code of the actual website. This is the same website, the court reporting one. So whatever application you use to get into the files, FileZilla on Mac, I use Coda, but I have FileZilla as well. This is just my particular one that I like for coding. But in order to get to the, deep in there, you're going to have to go through the file manager of some sort to be able to see these files. We're going to go into WP content. And then we go into the themes. We find the Genesis themes. If we look over here, if we go to the dashboard, we'll see that there's actually 2 Genesis themes installed. One of them is the regular theme, the base, and then you've got the child theme. So we've got the sandbox. That's what's activated. But I did a lot of the tweaks to the main theme itself, which I know I could have gone through the child theme, and then that way we could have kept on updating Genesis anytime they put out an update. But a lot of times I just kind of go in and start hacking things apart, and I don't worry about any updates that come out, because a lot of times if there's an update, it's going to go ahead and break a lot of the work that we've done anyways. But if we go for browsing in our themes, we go to Genesis, then we go to the lib folder, LIB. We go to structure, and then finally we find this loops.php. So I told you it's pretty hidden in there. It's WP content, themes, Genesis, lib, structure, And then loops.php is where I did the vast majority of my changes. Right off the bat, I added in my own kind of spin tax little code, my little a class here for spinning text. So that way, we'll see down a little bit further down that there's a lot of things that already have spin tax built into it. So I believe it was you, Mark, that you were asking about the review stars and the reviews and all that. That's all currently being spun through. It's not a huge variety that I don't have a huge syntax in there, but it is definitely every single time you load the page, you're going to get slightly different review rating at either 4, 4.5, 5.0, for the star ratings, that kind of thing. The review is always a little bit different. The person that did the review, I've got it, spinning through the first name, last name, and then also the street. Since we are using the schema markup, I've kind of have just a bunch of different random street names, street numbers, that kind of thing. Now, obviously, if you were to put in the street address that shows up with the city and state short combination, then it's not going to be a legitimate address. But I haven't found that that's been an issue. As long as the markup is there, it doesn't have to be a legitimate location. But these are some things that you can kind of start going through and making your own tweaks and changes if you wanted to change that, how that appears, how that looks, that kind of thing, or if you want to mess with the schema. Just make sure, as you're going through, kind of save this. If you're going to start making changes to a live website, save this, in a separate text file or something, so you have something to kind of refer to in case you have any issues. And that's typically what I do. If I'm going to start going in and hacking things apart, I kind of make a copy of it, and then I start messing around with it. That way, if one of my changes just breaks the whole thing, at least I have a way to revert back to something that works. But this is where a lot of these extra things, once you start here on like line 174 with the echo, that's where the header and, we've got the map image and everything starting to show up. So this is where a lot of that comes in, and you can start seeing exactly. So if you're going to make specific changes to it, this is where you would start doing all that. And I believe the two files that I changed the most was the loops.php, and let me see if it's archive. No, I think everything with this one was just done through loops. There might have been a few things to the header. Yeah, I did some meta geo place name, geo region type stuff that I put on there. But other than that, the vast majority was done through the loops. And you can see some of the, how I was able to hide some of these things. If you start looking at the site and using Firebug, which is one of my favorite kind of developing type things when you're doing like front end development, and you want to take a look, like for example, I know that I've got some hidden things over here. And so if you start looking at those and you see like, okay, this is the class is collapsomatic. So if we look in our source code for class collapsomatic, we can see where that kind of came from and how I was able to do that. Now, we're not supposed to have those little arrows. And I think the reason they're there is because my plugin got updated. So if you have that issue, those are actually supposed to be hidden. I did give you guys under your profile, I've provided the edited version of collapsomatic that would allow you to hide. Oh, it's actually not here. So I got it uploaded, but there is a specific version of collapsomatic that I've kind of just hacked up a little bit in order to be able to hide that. So let me show you what that should really look like. It shouldn't show those little arrows there. So if we delete that or deactivate it, and I delete it, So for the most part, in any of the templates I provide, you can update pretty much, you can update WordPress. You can update all of the plugins with the exception of this Collapse-O-Matic one. And also, what would be the other one? I believe that's it. And then any of the themes themselves, if they have updates available, then you would end up losing that by updating it. So just, keep to updating WordPress, update plugins, but not Collapse-O-Matic. Let me see, I'm trying to find the correct one here. So I'll go ahead and upload this version of Collapse-O-Matic. I think it's like 1.70 instead of 1.73. But the main change is that when we look at it, there's not even a little drop-down arrow. We get the fully hidden from view. So it's fully, and I'm sure now the image is cached, but if I were to delete the cache through Cloudflare, because I believe this one's going through Cloudflare, once I delete the cache, then it will get rid of that. But then that way we can get rid of that little drop-down there so you can even tell that something's there. But that's the one area where the best, like I said, the loops.php is where you're going to start kind of doing your own tweaks. Now, another thing that I noticed that some people were having issues with is if I go back to the dashboard, just make sure when you're creating your post that you fill in the little extra meta boxes that's needed for this. And I'll show what I mean by that. Let me deactivate this and go back to my Shaker pages so you guys can see the Shaker page. I take advantage of those meta boxes in quite a few different areas. So if I go back to the Shaker page, this area here that says shortcodes needed for theme, I know that, in the training video, I said just fill in what's there. That was me making the assumption that you're using city, state, short, SIP. If you've kind of got your own setup and you're not using city, state, short, SIP, then go ahead and fill it in with what you would think or what would match the particular setup. So if you're doing like in another country and you don't have city, state, short, SIP, you've got something else, just fill it in with the corresponding short code that will match that up. Because these do quite a bit in the code itself. If we open up the code again, anywhere that we see, let's see, what it would be like this RWMB meta post city or RWM meta post state short, that's where those codes are going. So basically what it does is that, okay, for this specific post, it looks at and sees what we put here for city, which, they get replaced whenever you're running through SERPShaker. And that's where the code comes from. And then same thing with the custom. If you wanted to, let's say like somewhere in the code, you wanted to add your own custom option and you want it to show up, this is how, you would take advantage of this. So this one, like anywhere that the custom option for phone is in the code, that's where it's going to show up. So I've had some people kind of get my themes and they add in their own custom options on their custom options plus. They just add in a different custom option and then you get it to show up on the code itself by following the example here. So, if you know nothing about developing or coding, this may all be gibberish. But if you wanted to learn and start looking at some of these things, this will be a really good starting point for you to see, how to take advantage of custom options, how to take advantage of these meta box that we've got on there, that kind of thing. This will give you a good idea of how it all ties in and how it works together. Now, so like I said, if you're not using city, state, short, SIP, if you've got some other kind of short code combination, just make sure it gets filled in here, because this is where the map comes in. This is has to do a lot with the schema, that kind of thing. So if this is incorrect or there's nothing in here, then you're going to have some issues. And the way you can quickly kind of test it is, if you go to a specific post, just a random one, and edit it, you should be able to see, what's filled in there for that specific post. Like this one's Coffeyville, Alabama. And if we scroll down, it should be filled in Coffeyville, Alabama, zip code. If you were to, if you don't have any values here, if you want to just put in some kind of dummy values that are correct, and then reload that post, then you should see, you should be able to see it live, what it actually did, and if it is actually working it or not. So you should always have the map showing up depending on what you put on there. Another question I received was regarding about the content. How come I don't spin content? I've never really been big into spinning content. I realized that it has its advantages. It's just one extra step for me. And for the longest time, I always just used the one article, never spun or anything like that. But I did notice, that we were having some declining traffic, declining issues with things indexing well and whatnot. So by using the strategy that I showed last week, where we use the multiple articles combined with the article forage at the top or at the bottom or anywhere in the content, really, that's been working really, really well. So that, allows me to kind of not have to spin. I honestly have not done any testing lately, within the last 6 months of doing a full spun out article and comparing that to my other websites. It's just hard to kind of run that test, because whenever I run tests, I like to run them deep. I like to at least put out 100 sites with a particular setup before I can say, okay, no, this is not working, or yes, this is working much better. If I do 1 or 2 sites and I get better results, I may just be lucky. That may not be a full out test. But when you're talking about spinning, you've got that extra time that it takes. And I just haven't taken the time to do that. So that's my take on spinning. I know there's plenty of people that do these mass sites and they live and swear by spinning, and that will be the only way that they would do it. I also think that in order to get the best results, you really have to know what you're doing with spinning, and not just run it through Word AI, but use Word AI maybe to get started, but then kind of edit it, kind of spin by spin, which is it's just too crazy for me. I prefer the mass approach, and if I get 100 sites out there and 20 of them do good, about 20% of them do good, then I'm happy with that. And that took me less time. For the most part on my end, that would take me less time to do those 100 than to try to do just 20 that are amazingly well done. And there's no guarantee that all those 20 are going to work anyway. So I just like to take the mass approach with it, which is, if you see on my homepage here, I think I've got 800 plus live sites at the moment. And I continue to add to that on a weekly basis. I also go through and, any of them that die out or anything like that, I'll delete them from the server. I just went through a major server cleanup where I used to have almost close to 10 servers, and we kind of condensed them all to 1 or 2 servers, everything that was still alive, and kind of went from there. But it's just a matter of kind of constantly updating and seeing what's working. Which websites are still working, which ones are not, and, kind of clean them out, which if it wasn't for the command center, I wouldn't be able to manage that many at once. Mark, you're asking, can you explain why you're adding many city-state short and not adding the main keywords in the article? Yeah, basically, whenever we're grabbing the content from Easing articles the way that we are, my thinking is that those articles are already optimized for that keyword and then some, other variations of it. So I don't want to just start stuffing in even more keywords on top of it. I just take an article that's already optimized for the keywords that I want to rank for, and I add in my locations to it on top of it. Because ideally, when we do what we do with the Content Genie is that it's just doing a site, easingarticles.com search and doing your keyword. So let's say it was, court reporting schools was what we were talking about last week. And so doing it like that, and it grabs the first 100 results. So these are all highly relevant results, or what Google deems highly relevant to court reporting schools. They're all coming, directly from this source, but they're all, they've got them kind of ranked already in order of relevance. What Google thinks are the most relevant articles for court reporting schools. So you'll find that a lot of these already are highly optimized for that. And all we have to do is just make it optimized to our particular location. So that's why I focus on just adding in the city, state short, or adding in the location short codes and leaving the rest of the article alone. Now we do sprinkle in some of our own keywords when we do the interlinking by grabbing the tags like I showed last week and kind of spinning through those. So that does help a little bit. And then the tags themselves, when we have these, when we create these sites, we've got our tags on here. Each of these are going to be have some kind of keywords in the slug. So we take advantage of that. It shows up on the H1 on the very top of the website, on the title of it, and the slug. So it's this is highly optimized for that particular keyword. And what you'll find is that the vast majority of my traffic, anyways, comes from these tags. So that's why I don't focus so much on making the content perfect. I just want to have a good amount of tags on there, and I create websites in bulk so I can take the most advantage of all the tags that would be available for that particular niche or sub niche. I think, Brian, you mentioned some issues with indexing in the beginning. I don't know if you were on last week's webinar or not, but the content setup that I'm now using has really helped with the indexing, and especially with the tags getting indexed and actually staying indexed. Using Yoast SEO like I showed on the last week. So if you haven't seen it, go ahead and check that out. It is now on the homepage here on the webinar series. So just jump onto the 2017 webinars, click on that, you'll be able to see that on there. So that's one of the to kind of catch up on that, but it's just changing the way that we kind of grab our content, modifying it a little bit, and also moving on to using Yoast SEO. So that's really kind of helped out. Now there is, like I said, there is a program I'm testing out for indexing right now. It's a service, and I'm still getting preliminary results. I did a bunch of sites last week. I'm going to do a bunch of sites this week. So next week, I'm hoping that if it continues to go well like it has, then I can implement something into the command center. They have an API set up, so we can just put in our API keys there. And then if you choose to boost your sites or give it an initial push, then I'll have that set up in there to where we can submit. Basically, what I'm doing is every time I build a site, I send 200 links to that service. That's enough to kind of get the ball rolling. And I've even worked with John, who happens to be on here, we've messed around with a plugin to be able to get it to submit, kind of drip feed more links on an ongoing basis. So I'm still getting kind of preliminary results on it. If it continues to work, I don't see any negative effects, then it's something that I'll be able to add to the command center. If all my sites get wiped out, then I think that would be a warning sign that something's up with it. So that's what I'm kind of waiting for, just to kind of get a little bit more data before I, take the time to add it to the command center. But that kind of helps get it kick-started. But once it's kick-started, it's just a matter of kind of putting more sites out, having a little bit of patience. It does take a little bit longer. It's not like a week in, we're going to have thousands indexed. But, it used to be that it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks before we would even see any index results. And now I can get index results within a few days and then just kind of wait for them to kind of keep on growing, and that kind of thing. I think I answered your question, Alexander, but reporting about what you can update, can't update. The main thing to not update is the themes and that particular plugin, the Collapsomatic plugin. Everything else you should be able to update just fine, but just the themes and Collapsomatic. Because I hard coded a lot of the stuff into the themes, so if you update it, then that's going to mess things up. But everything else, I know for security purposes, you want to have everything updated. So the WordPress, you should be able to just fine. Any other plugin, any of the other plugins, you should be just fine. Some of you were having actually issues launching recently with the newest version of Duplicator. I've fixed that just this morning. So if you're having issues, you'll be able to use the brand new version of Duplicator without any issues anymore. They just, every now and then they'll change like one of the functions. So I have to go in there and update it. I think in the long run, in the next month or so, the command center is going to have its own Duplicator plugin. That way we don't have to worry about any updates in the future. But for now, the Duplicator plugin continues to work. I fixed it with the latest one, so we should have no issues there. As far as more templates or things that will be, going forward, I am working on one of my AdSense templates. I haven't done AdSense in a while. And, I started with this, I got into this whole site setup with AdSense, and I've kind of abandoned AdSense just because I was making so much more money with pay-per-call that I kind of let everything else slide. So I haven't done AdSense, and I haven't done any kind of CPA type stuff with Max Bounty or anything like that in a long time. I mean, over a year, I think, with AdSense. I make maybe like $2 a day with AdSense right now. But I kind of want to do a sort of like, watch what I'm doing. And, this is how I was able to grow my AdSense type setup. So I'm going to get my AdSense template cleaned up, get it up and going again. Not the basic 2015 one. I used to use the CTR theme a lot back in the day when I first started. The CTR theme, unfortunately, is not mobile responsive, so I don't want to do that. But I was able to duplicate the CTR theme, or at least a lot of the functions that I like, that I was able to duplicate it onto another theme that is responsive, but works really well. So I'm going to package it up into a template, kind of provide that for you guys, do a little bit of training with it, and then also show you like, okay, here's how I'm attacking AdSense. The neat thing about AdSense is that it just opens up the amount of niches you can target by a ton. I mean, like anything that comes to your head, you can build a site about it with AdSense. I've done the most random things. One of the latest one, like last year, that I was just doing some testing with the theme was like on Pokemon, Pokemon stops, Pokemon cards, and that kind of thing, because it was around that time that the craze was going on, and that got some traffic. We got some clicks out of that. So it's just any random niche or something that comes to your head, you can throw up an AdSense site about it. Now, obviously, they're not going to be high clicks or high CPC on those and the random ones, but a lot of times, if you get the right niche, if you have enough traffic, then it could still be like, $5 a site, $10 a site for the day kind of thing, which can be pretty lucrative. So I'm going to jump back into it, and I'll kind of give you guys an overview of what I'm doing, what niches I'm kind of targeting, how it's working out. So, if any of you have questions about AdSense, you'll be able to follow along that. I will have the template ready here by next week's webinar. So I'll be able to provide you that. It's got like rotating ad placements. It does have ads above the fold, which I know a lot of people are like, no, that's a big no-no. You're not going to rank very well. I've never had issues with ads above the fold. And, obviously that's what's going to get the most clicks anyways. So, it does have those there, ads above the fold, the two, either one or two big squares up at the top, which is, like I said, it's typically a no-no, but I've never had issues with it. So I continue to do that. And I will go ahead and get everything updated on it, because I haven't checked the schema on it lately. There's probably a few updates in schema that I'm going to have to do with it. But once I get it cleaned up, I'll upload it, show you guys how it works next week. And then you can kind of follow along. It'll be like a separate series, just maybe a little video update every week of how the websites are doing specifically for AdSense, and try to grow that monthly or that daily income that it's making. You know, if I can get it to maybe about $100 a day on AdSense, I think I'd be pretty happy with that. So I'm going to work on doing that and let you guys kind of follow along while I'm doing that. Mark's asking, will we be able to update our actual AdSense site with the new template? If you, as long as you use like one of my current templates that takes advantage of the meta boxes, so like the city, state, short, SIP meta box that I typically have there, that area that says short codes needed for theme. As long as you use one of those templates, then yeah, you should be able to just install the new theme and it should work the same. But I honestly, typically what I do is always new sites. Like I don't go back and update old sites. So I don't have a whole lot of experience with that, if it's going to work or not. But I'm sure you can make it work somehow. Even if it means just rebuilding the post real quick, because you should have your Shaker page set up already. Just be a matter of deleting the post and re-adding them in or something like, something simple like that. But once you have it, you'll be able to kind of play around with it and see if it's something you'll be able to do or not. I'm going to go through my questions here, make sure that I didn't miss anything. But it seems like I think I've got them all. If you've got any other questions, feel free to shoot them now. If not, we're going to go ahead and end the webinar now. And I will, I was under the impression that this Demio platform would be sending the recordings automatically. I don't think that's the case. So what I'll do is within 24 hours or so, I'll have it posted here on this SSC webinar series, right under here. We've got the one for last week on here. So just, check back within 24 hours and it should be on there. I should have it linked on there. Last week we talked about RSS via shortcode for page and posts. What are the settings? Oh, the link. Okay, so now that we've got that on here, we've got this code open on here. Let me see what the specific shortcode looks like. All right, so this is what it looks like, which is a little confusing. So let me see if I can clean it up a bit. Let me just paste it somewhere new. So it's RSS on page. Okay, so this is got some code in it right now, so it's why it's a little bit weird. So let me see if I can get rid of some of this code here. All right, so this should be more like it. So let's do like carpet cleaning. Okay, so this is what the link would look like when you're grabbing the RSS feed. Let me put this in the chat box here. If you guys see that, that's what the, and ideally what the RSS link is for Bing to grab the RSS feed results. And so then in order to take advantage of the plugin, it would be something like, It will be something like this. It says RSS on page, blah, blah, blah. So this will, if you start playing around with that, you find some other RSS feeds. Now, the reason I like doing it the way I did it through the code specifically in the back end here was because I can take advantage of the city, state, short. I took advantage of the biz niche, the custom option for business niche. And so I took advantage of all that so that every single post has a unique RSS feed based on what the city and the state short is. Otherwise, if I just did the regular business niche and didn't add locations, then, okay, I would get RSS feeds, but it wouldn't be unique for every post. Now, what this also means, though, something else to keep in mind is that every time you have a post that loads, your website's, hitting Bing. I've yet to get blocked from Bing. If you notice on here, I've got another one kind of commented out, and I was trying to do the same thing with Google News, but I did end up getting blocked by them within a matter of like 2 or 3 page loads, just because you were hitting Google News too much. So I was trying to grab news RSS for those particular city, state, short, just to put like local news on there. So if any of you happen to know of a news site where I could do, where I can get an RSS feed, and it's not going to be based on Google, we may be able to get away with it. I haven't checked to see if like Bing has news or anything like that. But just to get some snippets of news, that's something extra that we can get on there. I've been, after I did the Bing one and I got it working, I kind of stopped looking into it, but I was, at the time I got excited because I'm like, if I can find just random RSS feeds that will give me unique results, then I can fill up every single post, I can fill it up with unique content. We've got our regular Easing article, we've got our Article Forge article, we've got these RSS feeds coming in from here. So it's just more and more unique content per post that we can do. So, that kind of opens up if you find some RSS feeds that work for city, state, short, or you can kind of combine them that way, then that would be a good way to do that. But yeah, this is where the code is. The one that I posted on the chat here is how you would do it. Taking advantage of that specific one that I was using. But I would recommend trying to work it into the loop code itself to take advantage of post city, post state, short. Because I haven't really looked into how I would be able to do this from within the content area. One of you guys can figure that out if you wanted to look deeper into it. Let's see. Yelp short code, should we add manually? Couldn't find where it's on the Adsense template. Some of the templates have it built into it. Some of them don't. So you would have to see if the Yelp is on there. Like I believe this PPC one already has the Yelp stuff in here. Let's see. I may have taken it out. Yeah, I took it out of this PPC one. So yeah, you would just add in the short code manually. And so if you don't see anything about SS Yelp or anything showing up on the content, then just add it in manually to the Shaker page. And no, Esteban, I have not found an alternative for Yelp with their API. I've just basically been using a bunch of fresh Google emails to kind of create different ones. And then using a program called, I forget what it's called, but some kind of SEO browser where it allows you to use proxies to kind of log in. So I'm basically use a different proxy every time that I create a different account. That way it's, that way you're kind of safe from getting it deleted. And so it's a pain to have to create API keys every so often. But I continue looking into different areas. I had Google Maps, the Maps data working at one point, but their limit for API results, or their, the daily limit was so low that we also ran into an issue. So like Alexander just said, that, Yelp just kind of, after you hit your limit for the day, they just start showing results. So it's just a matter of, creating, I would say like every 20 sites, I create a new set of 4 keys, 4 different Yelp accounts. And if I didn't notice an uptick in traffic whenever I add the business results, then I wouldn't bother with it. But it seems to me like every time that I do add business results, it works. So I just continue doing it. And now, if any of you guys happen to find some other kind, something like Yelp or Google Maps, something like that, that has an API available with a high limit, then please shoot it over and I will, work a plugin or work it into SS Yelp. But so far we're kind of, that's what we have to work with, is the Yelp one. So just, just continue creating API keys. All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, then we're right at the top of the hour here. I'm going to go ahead and end it. Next week, like I said, I'll have a new template ready for you guys specifically for AdSense. We'll talk a little bit more about AdSense, the mentality behind those kind of sites. Otherwise, if you've got any questions, feel free to use the Command Center chat. Keep in mind that on the weekends, I tend to not look at it at all. So if you send me a message on, towards the end of Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, I'll get back to you on Mondays. But I typically don't look at any kind of support unless I get like a emergency 911, the command center's completely broken, nothing's working on it. Because I do kind of, glance at it whenever it comes on. But if it's a typical support request, then I'll get to it on Mondays. But other than that, I've been going to be working all week. So if you've got any issues or anything, feel free to use the command center, use the chat box there, and we'll be able to get it working if you have a problem. But other than that, I'll get the recording up within 24 hours, and I will see you guys next week. Have a good one.